Greetings, welcome back to Friday 13th YouTube channel. Today you're going to be watching an interview with US power metal band Helloween, not to be confused with Helloween. Now these guys have been around for many years, probably about the same time as Helloween. So check out this fantastic band. It's been an honor interviewing these guys. So thanks for watching. Take care and please share on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And thanks to the guys out of Helloween. You guys rock. Thanks for watching, Metalheads. Hi guys.
Where'd you find that shirt?
I got it from Pure Steel Records in Germany.
And the backdrop.
I stole that from the internet.
Yeah, we had a backdrop, but look how cheesy it looks.
So, how are you guys doing anyway?
We're tired, but we're doing good.
I bet you're tired. You've been a long flight from Detroit.
Well, yeah, and some of us had to work the whole day before we got on the plane. So.
Oh, shit.
Well, we lost Jason. Jason's sleeping.
Right, it's not a problem. I'm gonna sleep soon, so don't worry.
He's going to sleep and not coming out.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you guys for doing this interview for Friday 13th. This is the first time we've done an interview. Now, George, we've been in touch before, as well as you, Brian. You know, by email and stuff, so we know each other pretty much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you for the interview. This is the first interview, and as you know, Friday 13th has been around now since 1988.
Can you turn the volume up?
It's as loud as it can go, sir.
I'm deaf. You might have to speak up.
No,
yeah, we made George ride on the engine of the plane. So
no, I was just saying that Friday 13th has been around now since 1988.
Oh, yeah.
One of the longest lasting fanzines, I think, on the planet.
So we've both been in the game for a while.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to ask you guys some warm-up questions first. I mean, you guys formed back in 1983. Obviously, Brian and George, you're the original members. So how's it been for you guys since you formed? I mean, you've done quite a few albums, haven't you? And then you went quiet, and now you're about to do a new album because I've been following you on Facebook. There's a new album coming out very soon. So just tell me a little bit about this new album. When's it going to be released?
Well, it's soon as relative with COVID and everything that went on, and various members having a couple of health issues and whatnot. It's kind of sidelined it. The songs are written and drums are done, but the rest of it has been taking time. And then with this year being our 40th anniversary, we're focused on doing some live shows, and so the record's still in the works. It's going to happen. Also, because Jason's not here, we're signing with his record label, and so rather than put it out on our own and distributing through Pure Steel like we did in the past, it's going to come out on an actual label. And we're also negotiating to re-release our entire catalog, remixed and remastered. So that, it's good news, but it delayed the process a bit.
Right. So you're still going to be working with Pure Steel, and is that something that's completely gone now? Is that something?
We still have a good relationship with them, but it's more of a handshake kind of thing. And once we sign with Sound City Records, that'll be exclusive. Although we just did a licensing deal with Lost and Found Records out of Salt Lake City or somewhere in the West. And they're going to do a limited run reissue of Don't Meddle with Evil and push it in Japan for us.
Well, excellent. I think I remember Lost and Found Records. Were they did they have a German label? Was he a German label as well as?
I'm not sure. I don't know. This guy's somewhere in the United States.
Right. I think they had some hardcore bands back in the day, if I remember right, Lost and Found Records.
There's about, if you Google it, there's about 30 Lost and Found records pop up.
All right. Okay.
I called him. I was trying to get in touch with this guy, Brian, that wants to do the Don't Meddle with Evil. And I had no idea. I called this place and they had a really bad phone connection. And I kept asking, is this Lost and Found Records? Can I speak with Brian? And then it would go on static. And I'm like, okay, great. So I tried like 3 or 4 times in the next day or two. Finally, I got a good connection, and that guy let me know it wasn't the same one, and I better stop calling.
Okay, then. So what's the current lineup for you guys? And you've got Jason on drums. Jason's only standing in. There's yourself, Brian, and George. But with the other two guys, the two guitarists.
TJ Richardson right here.
Hi,
and
TJ.
Ben Harmon right here.
Hello.
Okay, Gag. So as a guitarist, what bands was you in before Halloween?
So ironically, me and Brian were in a couple different side projects, you know, an acoustic project, and we had another heavier band that we were in prior. And I guess, you know, when this door opened, it just kind of made sense.
It was
to-
ass, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. TJ was in Ass with me,
Mhm.
and Ben is in my I'm in a Scorpions tribute also. So it's like a big jigsaw puzzle of.
Yeah.
I thought you said somebody was in my.
Interesting. So you guys actually didn't record any albums with other bands, and Ben and TJ. You never did any band albums at all.
we did a CD with Ass.
Yeah, we did. And I have another project that I'm a part of called Salvation's End. We did some recordings for that too. But prior to joining, it was only Ass, and I think we did a couple acoustic recordings together too, which is really actually turned out better than I thought it was going to. You know, my first go around of recording real acoustics and everything, you know.
Definitely check out Salvation's End stuff. It'll blow your mind.
I'll
It's
YouTube
really-
it. I'll YouTube it for definite.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
Hey,
and
you're welcome.
the Ass stuff is on YouTube too. If you go to my YouTube channel, I can send you a link in Messenger.
Yeah, thanks.
There's Halloween, there's Acoustic Hell, there's the Zoo, which is our Scorpions project, and Ass,
There's a
and
lot of cool
there's
live videos.
a lot of live Halloween stuff, a lot of really cool videos on my page.
Excellent. So I'm going to ask you about influences then. We're going to start with you, Brian, vocally. Who's your influences? Who's inspired you?
Well, my influences and my favorite vocalists are different.
Right, okay.
Robert Plant was my original influence, and Tommy James from Tommy James and the Shondells. That's who I grew up listening to. And then when my neighbor started blasting Black Sabbath and Deep Purple across the backyard, I quickly became an Ozzy fan. But ironically, my favorite vocalists are Paul Stanley, Klaus Meine from Scorpions, and Rob Halford.
Yeah, the God. Excellent. So then, TJ, who's your influences as a guitar player? Who's inspired you?
So I'm really into like the Shrapnel era stuff. So like I like Jason Becker and Marty Friedman and Yngwie Malmsteen, but because I'm a little younger, you know, like that was a little bit after my time or before my time.
Yeah, he was born the year we released No One Gets Out.
Yeah, I'm really into like Jeff Loomis and Chris Broderick. You know, I'm actually wearing an Obscura shirt. I love these guys, you know. Just stuff like that, just really technical driven guitar stuff I'm really into.
That's kind of how TJ and I met. I found him on a Craigslist ad that he put up, or did I put the ad up? I think I put the ad up. I was looking for a guitar player.
Yeah,
And
you mentioned Nevermore.
I listed Nevermore in my description because I wanted to cover The River Dragon Has Come, and he answered the ad, and we were talking for I don't know a couple of months, back and forth about, you know, our influences and what we wanted to do. And the band already existed before he joined. We were called Massive Heart Attack, and we shortened it, and it became Ass, kind of as a joke. And then we had, like, it was an acronym. Every show we changed the name of the band. But anyway, after like 2 or 3 months talking to each other, we found out that we lived like 4 blocks away from each other.
Like walking distance.
Walking distance.
Yeah.
And all this time we've been talking, had no idea.
Yeah, Nevermore, a good band. I used to be really good friends with those guys. Rest in peace, Roral. Yeah. I tell you another band, as soon as you're into the Shrapnel stuff, TJ, what about Apocrypha? You need to hear those guys.
I've never heard of them before.
Oh, dude, check out 3 albums on Shrapnel. You're gonna fucking shit yourself when you hear the guitar in.
I have their stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
So what about now, man? I can listen to some new stuff. I can't wait.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, Ben? What was inspired you as a guitarist?
So I was always really into like people with really strong like riff writing skills. So like I've always been into like the kind of prog rock stuff. So Tool is my favorite band. I also really like Nevermore because they have those crushing riffs in there.
Yeah.
A lot of the '90s, dark stuff. 9 Inch Nails I've been listening to a lot lately.
Those guys rule.
Yeah. So a lot of that stuff has really influenced me as a guitar player. So a really big focus on kind of the melodic stuff. Trying to combine the melodic, the technical, and also just like brutal crushing riffs into one is it's a balancing act, but it's a fun one to participate.
Interesting.
It's
What
kind
about
of cool. It's kind of cool how they fit into the band, because when we started out originally with George and myself and Rick and Bill, all of our influences came from all over the place. Like George was big into The Who, Rick was into Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen. Bill White was like into a lot of jazz drummers, and I grew up going to Broadway shows. Like I loved like Jesus Christ Superstar and Godspell because I lived near New York City. So all of the influences were different. And so when you listen to our music, it doesn't sound like a bunch of other bands. It sounds like a collection of different influences. So when we ended up years later getting these guys, because their influences are so different, it works, it fits.
Okay, what about you, George? Bass players, who's inspired you? Obviously, Paul Stanley. Sorry, Gene Simmons. Sorry.
You know, I like and I'm inspired by different bass players for different reasons and styles. At an early age, it was James Jamerson, who is a bass player for the Motown studio band, the Funk Brothers. And then on the other aspect, you know, I like other bass players like John Paul Jones, because he's just such a pocket player with Bonham. Then there's John Entwistle, amazing bass player. And in later years, some Jimmy Bain from Dio. I always loved the way he played. He kept a solid pocket. You know, for me, the type of playing, and Brian's the one that pulled it out on me. Less is more. I would rather ride a note and just fill up that whole pocket of air with riding a single note without doing a bunch of runs. The bass players that play for the song and not themselves are the ones that inspire me.
Right. Okay. So how would you describe your music? I mean, to me, it's American power metal. It can't be classed as anything else. Do you agree?
Yeah, I guess for being in the band, it's really hard to put a finger on it, because to me, I can't think of other stuff that's like similar. I think we're just a heavy metal band. I don't know how to.
Yeah, not only did it seem different, but it's evolved along the way, and we've gotten both praise and flack for that, because you know, when we first started out, we did Don't Meddle with Evil and Victims of the Night. Again, Rick's influences were a lot of Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen, and obviously with the stage show and whatnot, elements of Alice Cooper creeped in. And then when Bill and Rick left the band, we ended up with a guy named Billy Gray, and he was very blues oriented.
Kind of like a Zakk Wylde.
Yeah, like a Zakk Wylde, exactly. A lot of wah pedal and whatnot. So that changed the sound, and that like took us in another direction. And then him and Tommy Stewart, who ended up in Godsmack and a bunch of other bands, when they left the band, we were back to the drawing board, and we got this drummer that was kind of top 40 jazz kind of guy. In fact, when he came over and auditioned, we laughed because he brought over this drum kit that was all rototoms, and it had like dusty bras and underwear from girls that had thrown stuff up on stage at his top 40 show. And when we found out who he was, we knew the band that he played for. It was like the house band at one of the clubs that we would go and do all ages shows at. And we looked at each other and we're like, we had auditioned like 6 drummers that day. We were exhausted. And then this guy shows up with a rototom kit, and we're like,
almost didn't take the audition.
Yeah, we almost told him not to even bother setting up the drums because we had no hope that it was going to go well. And then he played and blew us away. So he ended up playing drums, and after he left us, he went on to play in Sponge. I don't know if you know them.
No.
But then the 2 guitar players that came in after that were influenced by Slayer and Obituary. And so that took us to a whole other level, but we didn't want to abandon our roots. So we've kind of just been like this big melting pot of everything we started out with and just continued to grow and explore. And some fans, you know, they see you one way and they want you to stay that way. In fact, playing here in Germany, the first time 19 years ago, we came and played the Keep It True Festival like we're doing tomorrow. And, you know, we veered off from the Don't Meddle stuff because the No One Gets Out album had been like the most recent one, and those songs were great. You know, we
Yeah,
loved
great
them.
album. Great album.
And so we played a couple of those songs, and half the crowd was like, "What are they doing?" You know, like they thought we lost our identity, and it took them a few years to realize that that was part of our identity.
Okay. I mean, do you ever see it? Do you ever see anything of the old band members?
I'm sorry.
Do you ever see anything of the old band members?
Once in a while, George and I went down when Rick turned 50 years old. He lives in Atlanta, Georgia now, which is like a 14-hour drive from where we're at. And we went down and we did a mini Halloween original reunion. We tried to get Bill White to come with us, but he didn't. So Rick's family knew that we were coming down to surprise him. So Rick's stepson, Dakota, learned a handful of the Halloween songs on drums. And the premise of this was that Rick, with his cover band, they were going to resurrect a few of the old Halloween songs, and their singer was going to sing them and their bass player was going to play them. And so when they got to that part of the set, Rick's wife brought us from around the wall, and we walked up on stage. And
Actually, they were doing a free song, and the part where the bass breaks
yeah,
down,
yeah.
the bass player walked off stage, handed me his bass, and when the bass came back out, and I came out, and
During Rick's
stood there,
solo,
yeah, Rick, he was just he wasn't sure what was going on.
Because all of a sudden there's George on stage with him, and then I came out. And we did, I don't know, 3 or 4 songs. Was it
like
that many?
7.
Wow.
Yeah,
There's video of that too on my YouTube page.
I'm
What a
gonna
nice
check out.
What a
check
nice
out.
place. Pretty good.
I mean, I look at your first album. I've got all your albums. Don't Meddle with Evil. I mean, the image back then was kind of like a Motley Crue, kind of Too Fast for Love, but it was certainly not the same style of music.
No, and that wasn't. We weren't trying to be like them. In fact, we didn't know what they looked like. The fact that my hair was blonde and everybody else had black hair in the band was just a coincidence. My hair ended up blonde because my ex-wife went to beautician school and wouldn't quit messing with my hair. So it went from blonde streaks. The next thing I know, I looked like a light bulb. and then people kept trying to get me to go on Rod Stewart lookalike talk shows.
Brian, you kind of looked a cross between Lizzie Borden and Sebastian Bach when he was in Mad Max. In Madam X. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really good album, and like you did, No One Gets Out. That was such a vast improvement. No disrespect, it went so heavy, and I was just like, "Whoa, this album's fucking awesome." This is like, "Whoa, this is cool shit."
We really loved the songs on Don't Meddle with Evil, but we wish the production had been better. We did an interview earlier today, and we talked about how Don't Meddle was recorded twice, and we just both times we didn't really have the budget to go and properly do it. The second time we borrowed money from George's family and went into a studio that not only had never done a heavy metal band, had never done a rock and roll band.
It was
the studio, yeah, they did gospel, like church choirs and stuff. That's the only thing they had ever done. So when we came in there looking like we looked and sounding like we sounded, they didn't know what the hell was going on. So
he did pretty well.
He did well. I mean, but it was a big experiment, and the fact that people will spend hundreds of dollars to find an original copy of that album just blows my mind, because I have trouble listening to it myself.
I've actually got the original cover of that. I've actually got the original CD, and I think the production's excellent.
I've seen one on eBay for like $350.
I love all the songs. I just wish it sounded, like you see the modern technology now, and you're like, oh man, if it sounded like this, No One Gets Out was, like you said, a vast improvement. And a lot of that was the technology, it was easier to get that heavy sound,
That Don't Meddle with Evil album is almost a live album. we had 30 hours from beginning to end. We had a 30-hour block to do the record and
Not just to record it, everything.
mix everything.
We recorded it, mixed it, mastered it in 30 hours. That was how much money we had.
But when we ended up, when we went in, we used to rehearse every single day. We lived together, and as soon as the clock started, as soon as the last mic was set on drums, and we played all of the tracks except for the lead, the guitar solos, and the vocals. Everything else was done live, right there on the spot. It was like a rehearsal, what you would do at a rehearsal, but Rick didn't add all of the riffs. You know, he came back and put those in after. So that was almost essentially a live recording, you know, but when we ended up, see, we actually recorded it twice. You know, he could tell you about the first time we recorded that. The one that was released was actually our second attempt at recording Don't Meddle with Evil.
And when we went into, we were told there was a guy that was, you know, a big talker around Detroit that supposedly was some guy that had worked with Kiss as a producer. And so when we went in there, we thought we had a professional coming in there to, you know, crack the whip and make sure that everything went the way it was supposed to go. And the dude never showed up. So we went in there with the clock, you know, the stopwatch ticking, 30 hours to get it done. We had no idea what we were doing. The engineers didn't know how to get our sound. So it was definitely
the first attempt was it wasn't quite there, you know. After listening to it, we were hoping that we'd be able to pull it off better. Where was it? It was that was the place where we stayed in the tent.
yeah. That was some old abandoned elementary school that some guy put a studio in, and one of the classrooms was the engineer booth, and another classroom was the studio part, and then we were doing vocal effects in the hallway all the way down and around the corner and pulling all kinds of jokes. But it was we really didn't know what we were doing there. So when we went into the disc to do the actual album, luckily we had a little better of an idea, because like I said, we were surprised when the producer didn't show up. Anyway, let's let these guys talk some more too, because you know,
All right.
I'm telling you, this show tomorrow, unless something happens, we've got the most solid lineup that we've had in a while. These guys work really well together as a guitar team, and you know, we're lucky to have Jason on board. He's Ted Nugent's drummer, and we've known him for a long time, and it's going to be a really good show. So I'm excited for these guys to play this festival.
So Ben and TJ, how long have you been in the band then?
You go ahead.
All right. So I've been in the band, I think a little over 11 years. It was 2012. Actually, the Territory release show was my first show with you guys. And
then the tour.
And then the tour right after. I was like 22.
Yeah, no
and
pressure.
boy, no pressure at all. None at all.
Well, you got him. He's like, you were supposed to play his first show and backed out a couple of days beforehand. So then he had the pressure of having to pull all the weight.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what that felt like, by the way.
Yeah. Which segues into So I've been in the band since 2017, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And that was actually through I was telling the story earlier today, is a friend of mine followed Halloween on Facebook, and they put out an open call because they weren't looking for a permanent member. They were looking for a fill-in guy, just to take over some of the lead guitar parts for a couple of gigs. And that was Don Gurrier, who I was kind of like, just like replace for a couple of gigs, whatever. But then Don Gurrier just kind of ended up kind of fading away. He was kind of got occupied with his other stuff. So then I just I was stuck, and ever since
we wouldn't let him go.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of cool too, because like, we're both shredders, but we're like two different kinds of shredders, and we complement each other very well. It's actually really, really cool. I'm really looking forward to like kind of showcasing that tomorrow too.
So when
It's
you
gonna be fun.
guys play live, do you do what Judas Priest do? Like KK will play one part of a solo, then you'll switch to the guitarist for Glenn Tipton. You with kind of same sort of ideas?
We've actually been toying with that idea, and it'll probably be not tomorrow, but it'll probably be the next show coming up. We'll end up actually doing like trade-offs for some of the older songs.
I think there's one song that they're gonna trade off on teaser
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah. And I think I got a couple solos in the beginning of the set, and
There's some harmonies here.
yeah, a couple
like-
harmonies
yeah.
too, which is kind of cool. But yeah,
See, when TJ came into the band, Don Gurrier was our lead guitar player, and TJ is an amazing guitar player, just a phenomenal shredder. And he played the entire 2012 tour just as a rhythm guitar player. And I'm like, I'm watching him knowing, oh my God, like if people could see what he can do, shit, even without him playing solos, every single band that opened for us on the 2012 tour, which was a lot of shows in Germany, Belgium, and we went to the Netherlands. Every single opening band tried to steal him from us, and he was only playing rhythm guitar. So you know that just tells you the charisma and the talent. You know.
So what guitars do you actually make?
that's
What
all it
guitar-
was.
So what guitars do you actually play between you both of you? What make a guitars? What's your?
So I am a 7-string guy because I'm a huge Nevermore fan. So my 7 strings, I play Ormsby Guitars. They're a company out in Australia, absolutely amazing company. But for this band, because it's a 6-string band, I'm really partial to Jackson guitars. And Brandon Ellis is actually becoming one of my favorite guitar players. So I have his signature, Kelly, that I'm playing on stage tomorrow, and that's kind of my new baby.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
And then for me, so I play Electra guitars. So you know, they made those Les Paul copies back in the 70s, but people don't know this, but in the early 2010s, they were resurrected by Ben Chaffin. But he used to build Dean guitars, but he resurrected Electra, the company, and started rebuilding them. And so I was looking for a Les Paul that had some of the design flaws of the original Les Paul fix, like a cutaway kind of, so you don't have the bulky neck joint, and a volute so that the headstock doesn't snap off. And Electra had that without ruining the look because sometimes like guitar companies will try and copy the Les Paul, but then they'll make it like really pointy, stuff like that. So I wanted something that had like the traditional look, and so they're the company that was doing that. And I bought one guitar, and then I bought 3 more of them. So I play Electro Omegas, and yeah, that's been my guitar of choice for the past almost 10 years now.
Awesome.
And then in terms of amplifiers, I usually play into a diesel and into an EVH cabinet.
I was in PV amps for a while, but then I kind of went to the dark side. Now I'm using like a Helix, and I'm just going direct. You know, I got like a PV amp on there that I use, and all my effects are on there. Kind of keeps things easy, especially for shows like this where I can just kind of plug into the PA and get my sound instantly. So
Awesome.
George's an Ampeg guy.
Ampeg. They're the only amp that are larger than most refrigerators.
And when we rehearse, he uses 2 of them.
yes,
And his volume's twice as loud as everybody else. And I just want, that's why you can't hear. And I just walk in with my Shure or my Sennheiser microphone and go, where do I plug this in?
So I'm going to ask you now then, out of all the albums you've done with the band, which one's your favorite? Do you have a favorite album, all of you? Which is your favorite album?
Man, that's hard.
Wow, I don't like any of them.
Yeah. Well, their opinion matters more than ours.
I think that's hard. You know, I don't think my mother loved me more than she loved my brother Ben, but it's really, really hard. I would have to say probably Don't Mess with Evil because that album changed my life. You know, it literally took my life in a different direction. I mean, if it hadn't been for that album, I probably would be somebody's plumber or garbage man, you know. So, but that album was constructed out of hope and a dream. You know, it was just it's hard to put words on, so I would just have to say it'd be Don't Meddle with Evil.
Okay, what about you, Brian?
For the same reasons, I would say Don't Meddle with Evil, but currently the badass remix that TJ did of the Territory album, I can't stop, like I'll throw it on for a second just to, I drive cars for a living, so I'll throw it on and think I just want to hear one song and I can't turn it off.
He's a carjacker.
Carjacker.
Do you know something? I actually,
I'll throw the first song on, and the next thing I know, I've listened to the whole album because I can't turn it off.
I'm gonna have to say to you, Territory is the only album I don't own by you guys. I don't actually have the CD. Do you have any on tour with you on this tour?
No, we're actually sold out of Territory, and the funny thing about that is that the original mix, when we recorded that album, and part of the reason that we were actually looking for guitar players when Ben joined up was because Donnie Allen, who was our guitar player on No One Gets Out, one of them, and on Horror Fire, he had a liver transplant and was really sick right in the middle of us recording that album. So we started looking for, well-known guitar players from our area. Chuck Stoll from the band Damien from Toledo plays lead guitar on 2 of those songs. Don Gurrier plays on a couple of the songs.
Actually, no, he talked me into playing guitar on a couple of songs.
George plays solo on
A couple of
in fact, Caught in the Webs is only me, George, and Rob, our drummer at the time. Like, there's not even a guitar player on that song. Well, Andy Furta did
right. Yeah, I think I played the guitar on Dead On as well.
Yeah. Yep.
What about you, Ben and TJ? What's your favorite albums that they've done the band?
All right, so it's tough for me too because I'm like really into No One Gets Out because I like just the overall heaviness of it. But I'd have to say Territory because I got to work personally with it. I don't know, man. I mean, when you and I first met, it was Head Against the Wall that made me just like, oh my God, this guy's vocals are insane. So I was like, I'm partial to that too, but I would say Territory just because there's so many good songs, like Her Ghost Comes Out to Play and
I Lie Awake.
Yeah, I Lie Awake, Say Your Prayers.
Yeah.
Images Quite Horrible.
That was the first one. When you played me the remix of Images, I got chills. I got chills right now thinking about the first time I heard the remix.
Actually, it was funny. Our last rehearsal before coming here, we were messing around. Yeah, we were messing around playing one of the songs. As soon as I got done, I went to the main riff for Images, and he's like, "Don't do that, man. Don't do that."
Oh, and the reason you don't have that album is, I was starting to say, because of Donnie's injury and all the trying to find guitar players to play on it. Rob, our drummer, was doing the mixes on that.
He played on some guitar on there.
Yeah, Rob played a little bit of lead guitar too. So it was kind of like a patchwork, we were trying to just throw it together and hurry and get the album done.
Yep.
And anyway, Rob kind of over tweaked, like he just kept on working on it. He wasn't happy with the mix and he'd work on it some more. And Pure Steel wanted the record, and because it had been a long time, just like with the current one, it had been a while, and they wanted to put the record out. So we ended up sending it, and it wasn't right. And like the mix that's on the actual CD, what TJ did to it it's like a different record. Like this again, just like Don't Meddle with Evil. The songs are really good, but the mix that TJ did, sorry, I don't mean to blow your head up, but it's so good. So now when we go to repress it, we're going to use TJ's mix.
I need to get a signed copy from you guys, please. Definitely.
All of the remixes of that album are on my YouTube channel.
Oh, awesome.
Lyric videos. You can find it, all those songs.
It's kind of funny too, because I don't listen to stuff I do, like mixes and everything. I don't listen to it after I do it just because I just don't want to hear it because I've heard it so many times. But on the way to rehearsal one time, I actually just kind of came on YouTube or whatever, and I was just like, I did this? Really? This is me? Like, what? Because it sounds very much like, because when you guys were recording that, when was that? Like 2008, 2009 you guys started?
Yeah, probably. Actually, I think probably 2007.
Yeah, well, it's funny because it's like the mix reminds me a lot of like the Andy Sneap style mix, you know,
And that's like
from that
one of
era.
his favorite producers.
Yeah. So it was like it was a fun project to work on.
Also, the remix is on Spotify. Yeah, so
Killer
So,
album.
so what songs are you going to be playing tomorrow then? Just before we wrap up.
well, Ben, what was Ben's favorite album?
Oh yeah, Ben. Sorry, what's your favorite album?
I'm not gonna let him get away with it. I
Yeah,
wanna
yeah.
know.
Pretty solidly No One Gets Out. I think it hits the sweet spot of like the melodic riffs, but the heaviness too. While also having, you know, production that allows you to really experience the song the way that I feel like these guys intended. So yeah, that's pretty solid for me, especially because I used to have to routinely make a long drive to St. Louis, and I just put that CD on in the car. And it was also good because even before I had to learn all those songs, I just enjoyed listening to it.
A lot of mathematical puzzles on that album.
Yeah, exactly. I really like it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like playing with rhythm a lot in my own personal music as well. And so like, yeah, there's a lot of like rhythmic trickery. I'm sure you can hear in certain songs where there's a lot of playing around with that. So I really enjoyed that.
All right, so we're just talking, like I say, when we're talking about No One Gets Out, one of my favorite songs on that album is a song called Crawl to the Altar, but it's not actually one of your songs, is it?
Well, no. It was adopted by us. We talked about this earlier too, that we cover other local bands. Tim Wright, who was the second guitar player when we wrote all those songs, had a band called Erebus. And Tim was our guitar player. So when we brought him into the band, you know, we loved Erebus would open for Halloween sometimes, and their shows were always great. And that song always stuck in my head. And I said, well, hey, let's record it. So we did.
So it's, I mean, I was listening to the Erebus demo on YouTube, and I thought you were singing on it, Brian. It's the guy just sounds like you.
Yeah, no, that's Brian Bennett. I had to kick myself in the ass to get up to those notes like him.
It's a brilliant album. Like I say, you did Victims of the Night. That was another fantastic. I'm like Horrorfire, which is even a stronger album, even heavier.
Man, that actually started. We recorded that twice as well.
Yeah.
That started. There was a period of time after like No One Gets Out and Vicious Demo. After that, Rick and Bill White came back for a short stint for a little while, and we wrote a few of those songs that are on Horrorfire with Rick and Bill.
Yeah, Ways of Man exist,
and
well, Nobody's Home was an older song, but we do that too. We go back into our library of songs that never got recorded, and we pick a couple of gems and put them on our current albums. In fact, the album that we're working on now, there's a song called Rats and Rock Dogs that was like one of our oldest songs. And on Territory, Caught in the Webs was like so old, it was probably one of our first 10 songs
that
ever.
was before Don't Meddle with Evil.
Yeah.
But the later stuff on Horrorfire was like Fire Still Burns, The Seer. You know,
Great song.
that's when I was in a writing mode where I was detuning everything down to C. And those riffs seem to fit that kind of a tuning and groove.
I mean, I've got the original CD of Victims of the Night, but you rechanged the cover for that, didn't you? Made it into like the cover behind me, which looks a lot better.
Yeah.
Was that production on that album different as well when you did the artwork?
You know, there's something about that album. I think it was cursed from the start. There's parts on that record that I literally cringe when I listened to it back, because we had a error on the drum tracks when we were recording the drum tracks.
Well, no, what it was, Bill White wanted to experiment with, you know, Simmons drums were becoming like a big thing at the time. And we had saw a magazine ad for this kick-ass looking electronic drum set that had like devil faces on it. And he was like, oh man, that'd be badass. He goes, I always wanted to play some electronic drums. and we were in the studio working on Victims of the Night. And Pete Bankert, the engineer that was working on the record with us, he goes, I got a guy that will, give me a really good deal on a rental. And so we brought an electronic drum kit in, and Bill played some of the songs on it.
Well, actually, no, he played it on live drums, and they were triggered into it was like a head thing.
Right.
It was a trigger. So his real drums were actually on there. And then what they were going to do was they were going to trigger them to these like kick-ass sounding drums. You could get, for instance, a John Bonham kick drum and a Phil Collins snare and Neil Peart toms.
Yeah, it was like early sampling experiments. And what happened was the live drums got erased, and we were stuck with the electronic drums. And that's what ended up on the record.
So how did it sound different then, Brian? How did it sound different, the original drum sound? But you can hear it in your head still, can't you? And think, God, what happened?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, they sounded like the drums on Don't Meddle with Evil. It was the same kit, same drummer. But again, he wanted to experiment with triggering and samples, and it just backfired on us.
And that actually, the error didn't occur till after we were already done with all the recording and all our equipment was out of the studio. There was no way to go back unless, and at that point, I don't think we could have just went back and added drums in where the mistakes were. We'd have to have done that whole album from scratch. And that's also part of the reason why there was such a time lapse in between Don't Meddle with Evil and Victims of the Night, because they were supposed to be a year apart. They would have been a year.
Yeah, they were recorded a year apart.
So, we should have had that album out 2 years after the first one. And between that and there was
we had a spec deal with the studio. Again, we had no budget to make a record. And so they were going to let us have unlimited recording time. And because we were spooked by the 30 hours and go. So we were like, unlimited recording, we can take as long as we need. But the thing was, we had to go in off-peak hours. So we were recording at like 5 a.m. We're recording at like 7 a.m, and the neighbors are mowing their lawn, and you can hear the lawnmower when we're cutting, tracks, and trains are going by. And so it was really hard. And then right in the middle of it, we had finished recording all the tracks, but before we started to get into the mixing process, Pete, the engineer, was also the bass player in a band called Weapons, and they got to go on a world tour. And so our project came to a screeching halt, and the owner of the studio, who apparently didn't agree to the spec deal of us paying for the recording 90 days after the release of the album, he suddenly wanted the money now or we don't go any further. So those tapes were locked up in the basement of the studio for like 9 years. And we did Vicious Demo and No One Gets Out, in the meantime. And then finally, Victims was released, 11 years later.
Wow.
And Rick and Pete mixed it the best they could, but with all the errors and the electronic drums, we left 4 songs off of that. I Scream was supposed to be on there, Need to Make You Rock. Come and Get It, which was a track that we did with West Beach from the Plasmatics. Halloween Night was supposed to be on there.
It made it on there, didn't it?
Well, it made it on there as a hidden track later, like on a re-release. When we put it out with that cover that's behind him, we put a demo version of Halloween Night on there. But yeah, there was like 4 or 5 songs that didn't even make the record because we were having such a hard time trying to get it to sound right.
Right then. So I'm going to talk about this new album that's coming out. What is the title for this album? Do you have a title yet for it?
Yeah, it's tentatively called What Evil Fears. And I came up with a really kick-ass idea for the album cover. And when I suggested it to George, he was like, ooh, I don't know about that, because it was right at the beginning of COVID. And everything that we saw in the news, I don't know how it was in the UK, but in America, every news story had the COVID molecule. You know, they'd talk about COVID-19 and there would be the molecule up in the little cube of, you know, just like how we are right now over your shoulder, there would be the COVID molecule. And I'm like, what evil fears? COVID. I go, let's put Jack's face on the COVID molecule and that'll be the cover. But at the time, it's like it was so controversial. Everybody was wearing the masks and scared to death and people were dying. And George was like, I don't know if that would be a good idea. But now that everything is how it is, I
But
think,
then again, now that molecule in 5 years will be pretty much dated.
yeah.
Well,
So we don't know what the cover is going to be, but that was the kick-ass idea.
Did you have any other titles for the album?
Ben wanted to do it like he wanted to take your shirt off and have a fan on him, and he wanted to look like Fabian in the 80s.
Did you have
No,
any other
no.
Did you have any other titles for this album then? Or was that it, Brian? Was that the only title you had?
Well, that's going to be the title. We just
Right.
aren't sure on the artwork.
Right, okay. So how many songs do you actually have wrote for this new album? Is TJ going to produce it again?
Yeah, it was 13. Yep. Lucky number 13.
Yeah, 13,
And maybe a bonus track.
maybe.
There's 2 older songs, Rats and Rock Dogs and Kill Driver, were from the early Halloween days. And then we wrote a bunch of new songs. There's a song called The Horror Fire, a throwback to the Horror Fire album. There's the title track, What Evil Fears. Some of them still have working titles, so we don't even know for sure. what
And
all of
I
them
thought we had like 3 or 4 of them were titled Ben's song.
are. George's song,
Yeah, George
Ben's
Riff.
song.
George Riff too. Yeah.
So is the album pretty much wrote them now? Is it just got you got the lyrics to do still? Or the music wrote for the album?
The drums are recorded and the guitar parts are, you know, arranged, and they just, like, we got sidetracked with this 40th anniversary thing. We got live shows and whatnot. And you know, of course the years of COVID slowed us down, but now, you know, these 3 need to get in the studio and get all the music tied together, and then I'll get in there and do the vocals. We have, you know, scratch tracks and the arrangements are pretty solid, you know, where it's going to go.
Right then.
But-
So it was
Who
produced.
knows? You know, we're notorious for recording albums twice, so by the time it comes out, it might be something completely different.
Ben actually did some scratch bass tracks. And I'm a little embarrassed now that I have to go in and actually record bass tracks because his scratch tracks are pretty good.
And TJ was temporarily out of the band because he was focusing on Salvation's End. And so when we started writing the album, TJ wasn't with us at the time. He just recently came back into the fold. So
We're reworking a few things.
yeah, we're reworking a couple things to bring him in and include him.
Right. So is this album going to be released this year then?
That might be a little optimistic. Well, we're hesitant to put a date on it just because something always seems to get in the way.
Every time we do, it seems to fall off the ladder. And then you start climbing again.
Yeah, we say it's going to come out and then we just jinx ourselves. So it's going to come out. We'll leave it at that.
All right.
And again, we're going to re-release the whole catalog of all the stuff. We're going to, Vicious Demo was supposed to be an album called Vicious Demonstration. And there's like 5 other songs that were supposed to go on that. So that's going to be another project that we want to tie up a lot of loose ends. There's a lot of great songs, a lot of great material. And with this core lineup, you know, we're in the perfect position to put out a lot of music.
You know, we also have, we're recording tomorrow at Keep It True.
Yeah, it's going to be live in Germany, Halloween, Keeping It True.
And we have another live album that was recorded in 88.
88 with Rick and Bill. It's Don't Meddle with Evil live.
And it's the entire Don't Meddle with Evil. And John Drenning from Crimson Glory came into town and they brought a mobile recording studio. So he engineered all of that. And on top of that, there is a live DVD that goes along with
5
it.
camera shoot of that show.
So,
Oh wow.
you know, it would be nice to do a box set and bookend the 88 release along with the 2023 release. And
So
then just like a box set like that.
is tomorrow going to be released recorded as a video DVD as well as audio?
Well, the festival does audio and video anyway, but we got permission from Oliver and Tariq to release it as an album. But the video, apparently they're streaming the show tomorrow, and then
Really?
they usually put out a DVD of the show.
I've got some of the old DVDs with you guys on it.
Yep.
My friend of mine's doing sound for the Keep It True Festival, Jackie Lehman.
Oh.
He works with Saxon.
Nice.
So Tim, I said, hey. So I'm looking
All
forward
right.
to I'm looking forward to seeing you guys live if you ever come to the UK.
Well, we were in London one time on a flight connection, and we were there for 20 hours, just long enough that we couldn't leave our luggage on a plane. We had to get a taxi and stay there long enough to do nothing. Sit in a room. We ran down to the Tower of London just to see it and found out the tube was shutting down like 10 minutes after we got off of it. So we went, oh, there it is. And we got back on and tried to figure out how to get back to our hotel. But we definitely want to come there. We need the invite. Somebody needs to bring us there.
So what special effects are you going to have tomorrow at the Keep It True Festival? Are you going to have the grave like you do I've seen in the past?
We really can't travel with that because these festivals, they fly us over, they put us up in the hotel, they transport us to and from the gig and feed us dinner. But they don't have it in the budget for us to bring the stage show with us. So
when we toured here in 2012, Volker, the promoter, actually got stage props for us to use and had backdrops made or a backdrop. I would love to bring a show over here, but it's not cost effective. We wouldn't be able to afford it.
I packed as much crap in my suitcase as I possibly could. I've got 2, 4, 6. I got about 8 or 9 masks with me of my creepy friends, and we have some tapestries in our backdrop. And I'm doing my typical makeup, and so hopefully that'll be showing up. But if not, the music is going to definitely carry us because I got a solid band here.
Excellent. Do you know, an actual fantastic gig for you guys would be Alice Cooper headlining, King Diamond, and you guys, and just call it Trick or Treat Tour. That would be a fucking awesome tour.
Awesome.
I just put out into the universe on Facebook last week that I don't know why Halloween has not taken us on tour with them, because that would truly be a what do they call it? Pumpkins Unite.
Yeah.
Like, how did they not ask us to go on tour? They know about us. We know about them. There's no, no hidden, but that would be great. And we don't know yet. We're playing a festival in Mexico City in December. And we heard from a very reliable source that Old Black Eyes is going to be on the festival, but it's not been announced yet. So we're crossing our fingers that our information was not incorrect, but that would be a really cool bucket list item to play with Alice.
Along with Queensryche, KK's Priest, Leather Leone.
Wasp. Yeah, we're definitely playing with Wasp, KK's Priest, Armored Saint, Leather Leone,
Hellstar, I think.
Gordon, Hellstar.
Yeah.
Visigoth, who we're playing with tomorrow night, is going to be on that.
We're looking forward to seeing those guys sit.
Burning Witches, who's one of TJ's favorites.
I wonder why.
Camelot's on it. But yeah, they have a third announcement coming out, and hopefully Alice is on that.
But I definitely think King Diamond, Halloween, and Alice Cooper will be an awesome Trick or Treat tour.
In the middle of our Crimson Glory tour in 1989, we opened for King in Flint, Michigan.
Wow. Well,
yeah, I was Crimson Glory had a date in Canada, And we didn't do the Canada thing because of work visas and stuff. So on the day that we had off, we jumped on the King Diamond show.
It was Devil's Night of 1989, and the very next night we played on Halloween night in Milwaukee with Crimson Glory in a house on a. We were like in the kitchen of this house. The stage was just like in a room, not much bigger than the room we're in this hotel room. It was so tiny. It was the weirdest Halloween night show we ever played, because normally it's a big production with, you know, theater stage and all the props. And
The first night of that tour, that when we jumped on, we drove to the East Coast.
we drove all the way to Buffalo, New York, and they
the
wouldn't
show
let us
didn't
play.
happen. Yeah, the show.
Well, they played, but they
No,
wouldn't let us
No.
play.
I remember following the bus going, oh, it might have been after, but yeah, we drove all the way out there. And I was like, no.
I remember arguing
Oh, yeah,
with the guy.
the venue wouldn't.
The venue wouldn't let us play even though we were on the tour. And then that happened again. Something similar happened at St. Louis. There was like a local top 40 metal, you know, hair metal band that like everybody knew in St. Louis. It was like their local big time band. And we were on the tour with Crimson Glory. We were their support act.
And they were added to the show.
They were added to the show. And the next thing we know, we had to split the bill. You know, we had to let them play direct support to Crimson Glory, or the venue was going to cancel the whole show. And so we had to go on first and let them have their little ego trip or whatever. I don't even remember what their name was. And they were horrible. I mean, you know, after we slayed it that night, we came out
Because we were pissed.
yeah, we were breathing fire. So we came out, it was probably the best show on the whole tour. And then they had to go up and follow that with like, you know, like sleazy, like cheese metal. And then Crimson Glory. But it was a pain in the ass for Crimson Glory because we were sharing backline. So it's like, you know, we had to like get out of the way and they had to rewire stuff, and it was a big pain in the ass. But yeah, that was twice on that tour that we didn't, you know, get to do what we were supposed to do.
Yeah, somewhere down the line, our manager, who had passed away since, he ended up with a key to their room.
He found the lead singer's ID.
Oh,
The dude lost his driver's license, and our road manager, found this dude's license. So he booked a hotel room in Dallas the last night of the tour in this guy's name. And then everybody on the road crew, the two bands, proceeded to Led Zeppelin style trash this hotel room, which was in this lead singer's name from the St. Louis band. So that was great.
Well, I'd like to thank you guys for doing this interview. I wish you all the best tomorrow. Hopefully one day we'll meet. Do you have anything to say to the people watching this on YouTube?
Ben's in another band too.
Everyone plug your stuff. Well,
Go quick.
well, wow, I'm really on the spot here.
They're called Occlusion.
Yeah, OCCLUSION. It's like prog rock stuff. And then TJ's got Salvation Zen.
Yeah.
And then Brian has Ass.
And I have Halloween.
Well, you also have the Sleepy Hollow thing, right? That you're doing with Rick.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have the album.
That was Ichabod Crane.
Yeah, I have this other thing I did, but it's not really worth talking about.
Ben is also in Acoustic Hell with me, and we also do a Scorpions tribute called BFT's The Zoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, have a good show tomorrow. I wish I was there. I'm going to watch it. If it's live on the internet, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah,
It should be. And check out
Definitely.
that YouTube channel. I'll send you the link.
So sleep well, guys. Thanks again. And I'll be in touch and I'll send you this interview when it's online.
All right.
Cool.
Peace.
Thanks
Take
again.
Keep in
care.
touch, guys. Thank you. Be safe.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.
Prost.
Cheers.
Bye.